Now to the United States, where deliberations continue in the trial against Kyle Rittenhouse. The jurors in Kenosha, Wisconsin, failed to reach a swift verdict on whether the 18-year-old was the instigator in a night of deadly bloodshed there or a concerned citizen who came under attack while trying to protect property. The teenager is facing life in prison if convicted in that murder trial for shooting 3 men during street protests in Wisconsin. Well, France 24's Doug Herbert's with me on set now to break this all down. And Doug, this trial comes against a backdrop of deep political divisions in the United States when it comes to race, things like easier access to guns, and this trial is really crystallizing all of that.
Yeah, it's shedding a spotlight on the issues that come up time and again in these types of trials in America. Trials that center on, like you said, rampant gun violence and the profusion of guns in America, issues of racial justice, and issues of justice itself in jury deliberations and whether they are fair and balanced. What's interesting here is there's a basic question at issue. Kyle Rittenhouse was 17 at the time of the shootings that he is now facing charges over in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And the trial boils down to, was he acting in self-defense on the night of August 25th, 2020, when he shot at 3 protesters, racial justice protesters on the streets of Kenosha, fatally killing 2. And this is basically what the jury is trying to deliberate right now. Now, when you say it's crystallized the divisions here, this trial, with the polarized America taking 2 sides, the prosecution has basically presented this case as this teenager coming to Kenosha with a medical kit and an AR-15 style, military-style assault semi-automatic rifle. Let me just show our viewers a picture of that rifle. It's easy when you talk about a shooting to just think of, oh, we got a little small caliber gun. This is his lawyer at the trial showing the jury the gun that was used. That is an AR-15 gun. We see it time and again in a lot of mass shootings in America. So not just any gun, but a very potent gun. And so one of the questions is the prosecution basically saying, here you had a teenager joining up with other protesters and basically taking justice into his own hands against what the defense has called a violent mob. In fact, who were these people? Yes, there was a lot of destruction on that night. There was a lot of looting in Kenosha, Wisconsin on August 25th amid these Black Lives Matter protests. But the defense has basically said that these were genuine, legitimate protesters and that they were targeted by a teenager, by a minor, with a deadly military assault weapon, and that they were targeted by him because, like I said, he took justice into his own hands. Kyle Rittenhouse came to Kenosha specifically joining up with other people, sort of an armed vigilante posse, as the prosecution sees it. And like I said, the defense making that case that this was purely self-defense. Kyle Rittenhouse acting too because he feared for his own life and that he basically was trying to save his own life against people who wanted to kill him. One of the questions here, that this also raises is, are you acting in self-defense if you yourself provoke the actions that require you to defend yourself?
And Doug, the deliberations are ongoing. The jurors really do have a difficult task ahead of them.
A very difficult task. Look, he's facing 5 felony charges, the most serious which is first-degree intentional homicide, which in other states in the U.S. is called first-degree murder. That's the most serious charge. And as you said, he does face the possibility of a mandatory life imprisonment. There's also the possibility, the judge allowed for the possibility of the jurors to consider lesser charges, meaning that perhaps they could compromise on something if they don't want to go for the first-degree murder charge or any of the charges, that they could perhaps convict on unintentional homicide or a series of other lesser offenses. It's been a jury that has been, and a trial that's been surrounded by some controversy. The judge himself has been in the spotlight as a very eccentric figure, at several times taking the prosecution to task, admonishing, chewing out the prosecutor in court. At one point, the judge's cell phone rang, and the tune that it played was a song that is played at Donald Trump's rallies. That obviously garnered a little bit of notice. This is a judge who's been in the business 50 years, but there's been a whole debate. Does he favor the prosecution? Is he on the defense's side here? Who's he leaning towards? The prosecution itself has also been accused of missteps in this trial. It's really complicated in the sense the jury's task, and it's a complicated case because the events of that night, like I said, he fired 8 shots. He hit 3 people. 2 of them were killed. 1 was wounded. So there's a lot of stuff to pick through. There's a lot of videos that were shown at the trial that the jurors are going to pick over. But at the end of the day, there is a very strongly charged political/ideological element in this trial, even though jury members are supposed to be impartial and go by the evidence. It could be shaded, obviously, by their views, how they feel on those basic issues of racial justice, gun rights, what they think of vigilante justice as they might see it in America, and so on and so forth. So this is far from straightforward. The verdict is really unclear, and there's a lot of tension right now in Kenosha, and even fears that more violence, depending on the verdict, could erupt, a repeat of perhaps what we saw on August 25th, 2020 last year.
Doug, thanks for that. France 24's Doug Herbert. Thanks.